Executive Vice President at BABCO Foods International, United States of America. An expert food professional with US FDA exposure, Dr. Ken did his PhD in Electrical and Computer Engineering. He did his MS in Electrical and Computer Engineering from Rutgers University, USA. As Executive Vice President at BABCO Foods International, he oversees all sales and operations in Southern US markets, US West Coast markets and US Mid-Atlantic markets. He is in charge of new product and brand development as well as nationwide marketing activities. He has earlier worked at National Institute of Standards and Technology, a physical sciences laboratory and a non-regulatory agent of the United States Department of Commerce. Dr. Ken Vaz is here to address on the topic 10 steps to get your food products approved by US FDA for exports to USA, the largest food market of the world. We are privileged to welcome Dr. Ken Vaz to the summit at Vibrant Tamilnadu.
My name is Dr. Ken Vaz. I am with BABCO Foods International USA. It is my family business. Jagat Bhai was very kind to invite me to this expo, this venue, this conference to talk about the US FDA and how to get your products approved to export to the US. I am an importer. That's what my family has been doing. And this is what we are looking for from all of you who are gathered here today. And I hope I can contribute a little bit to helping understand what that process is like, what is required by both the consumers and the store owners in the United States, and how we can do business together. So I've organized this talk in 3 parts. A little bit of an outline is I'm going to tell you about the US FDA, what its role is, what it can do for the American public, what it does for us as traders. Also, what exactly is going on in the US right now, food-wise, that affects all of us who are gathered here. And then what we should do to export food to the US. No trouble with that?
No, there's no trouble. Only thing is you'll have to just, this is a PDF. If you're going to open the PDF,
Oh, I got you. No problem. So as the intro video had said, I have a PhD in electrical engineering. I was a staff scientist with the United States federal government. I quit my job some years ago and I joined the family business, which was started by mom and dad 16 years ago. BABCO Foods is the largest importer and distributor of South Indian food in the United States. We distribute our food in 46 of the 50 states of the US. And I head sales and operations in the southern US and the West Coast. And more recently, I've also taken on the role of heading our import compliance division because of new regulations from the US FDA. So going in there, the United States FDA is the Food and Drug Administration. It is a US federal agency. Its mission is to act as the gatekeeper for all food that is consumed by Americans. Regardless of where it is manufactured, whether in the US or outside the US, it is the gatekeeper. They ensure that all food, drug, and radiation hazards are, well, there's not going to be any food, drug, or radiation hazards. That is their role. The FDA also has field offices throughout the world, including in New Delhi, and they are very active, and they conduct audits of factories in India regularly. The FDA looks at manufacturing, regardless of where the factories are. They look at the supply chain, the containers that are loaded, the containers that are received in the US, the food that is shipped to the US. They have their own R&D facilities to set standards and guidelines. They also conduct audits of factories and processing plants both in the US and overseas. But perhaps most importantly, the US FDA's, the Food and Drug Administration's primary role is to enforce the laws of the US Congress, which is the US Parliament. Now, the reason the FDA exists primarily is because of foodborne illnesses. We're talking about Salmonella, E. coli, Listeria. These are all notorious. Listeria is notorious with milk, cheese, water. Salmonella is in any kind of produce. But the problem is, this slide shows how 15 pathogens contribute to $15.5 billion of economic burden. So it's not only the food safety issue where people get sick if we are not careful along the supply chain, but it's also an economic problem that we face as well, in addition to the consumers getting sick. So what's going to happen? What's going to happen if we are not careful with what we do with the food that is exported to the US? Of course, you need to have your FDA registration done. FDA is very particular about pathogens, about adulterants, about filth that may be present in the products if not enough care was taken while manufacturing. Seafood, juice, dairy, all of these are specific parts of the FDA, the specific departments that are looking at them, that are looking to enforce them, making sure that we all do the job right. Now, as traders, as businessmen, safety of the food aside, what is the problem for us? The problem is that when I'm importing containers into the US and there is an issue with the FDA, they place the containers on hold. When they do that, we lose money. We don't have revenue coming in. This is where cash flow starts to get affected. All because it starts somewhere where somebody did not take care with the food itself. This also results, the FDA loves to do this, expensive private lab tests. So if the food was tested here in India, when the container goes on hold in the US, we have to take samples of the food, send it to private labs, get every single item tested, and they have to come back negative for no pathogens or no adulterants, and then the goods are released. So all of this extra lead time when we start to do volume business does not work out for us. So along the chain, in this venue, this is why I was happy to come here to have this dialogue that we can have. Starting from India, starting from the factory, starting from the fields, all the way to the Indian American consumer, we all have to take a little bit of extra care to prevent blacklisting, to prevent loss of revenue. And I know this is about the FDA, but I can't not mention the USDA, because anything that is agricultural, anything that's grains, food that is not processed, the USDA comes in and they do the exact same thing with any food that's coming in. They want to make sure the rice that comes in does not have any capra beetle problem. That's a notorious problem that has happened with rice. Capra beetles are not native to the United States. So the USDA makes sure that any food items that are not native, any plants, any seeds that are not native to the US are not brought in. So there we have to take additional care as well. So, in America, this is the feedback that my family, my business, and I get from Indian Americans all the time. It is, we are Indians, so give us our Indian food. But we are Americans, we want that American quality. And I put up a few logos here just because it shows that Indians in America, we shop at Walmart, we shop at Amazon. My wife and I shop at India Bazaar, which is the largest supermarket chain in the southern US. And when we go to that store, the food that we get, the owner of the store, the staff over there take care that the food is provided to American standards. And that is the expectation of the people, of our people who are living in America. So why even have this talk? Because in America itself, there's a lot of trouble with food safety. So in 2008, there was a notorious example of Peanut Corporation of America. They were supplying 2.5% of all peanuts consumed in the US, but there was a problem. For years, They knew that the peanuts they were selling were all tainted with salmonella. And they kept selling them. And in 2008, that massive salmonella outbreak happened, 9 people died. The founder of the company, because he had foreknowledge that the food was tainted, was sentenced to 28 years in prison. The quality control manager, she knew about it. She had left the job prior. They found her, they arrested her, tried her, and she was also sentenced to a prison term. Now, this was the motivation back in 2008 when President Obama came in to start a new set of regulations. More recently, though, in April, against salmonella, 200,000 eggs were recalled. I got products up here, Goldfish, Ritz Bits. We're talking about Kellogg's, we're talking about Nabisco, Swiss rolls from a contract manufacturer for many companies. July, last month, were all of these nationwide recalls of salmonella for food that was manufactured in the US. So President Obama signed into law what is called the FDA Food Safety Modernization Act, FSMA, which we call FSMA. So FSMA is the most comprehensive overhaul of American food legislation. And this was passed by Congress in 2011. Now, 7 years later, they have started enforcing this. They have started enforcing it both with manufacturers in the US, with overseas manufacturers, if their food is consumed in the United States. So in my company, BABCO Foods, we have just spent, if I convert the currency correctly, 60 lakh rupees, starting an import compliance team and training our staff to ensure that the steps taken by our suppliers is compliant with FSMA, so we don't have any trouble in trade, you all don't have any trouble in trade. Which brings us to the heart of this presentation. What exactly should we do? And the truth is, it really is not complicated. It really does come down to that mindset. Here in India, there is a phrase that is used in Hindi. It's called chalta hai. It's all right. But that it's all right at any step in your factory, from your fields, in transportation, in storage, in my warehouses, with my staff, with my frozen food, that chalta hai attitude does not work because we deal with food. Anytime we make a mistake like that with one of our freezers, everything goes wrong. So it is about coming up with the right food safety plans. It is about having the right mindset. That's where it stems from. And it's also important to have the right trading partners. So where are your raw materials coming from? Your sources, the quality, pesticides, the pathogens. Have you dried your coffee beans to 12%? Have you dried your chilies to 12%? Do you have aflatoxin? Do you have those kinds of problems? Is the weight more because you're trying to sell more? Those cause food safety problems with the FDA. Same thing again, hygiene and cleanliness. I was in Mumbai in February auditing a factory, and I saw that their finished products were stored in boxes next to a raw sewage sewer, ready to be packed into a container. I mean, there's something fundamentally wrong with that attitude when it comes down to it. I've also been told that my time is running out, so I'm going to skip through the next few slides pretty quickly. But again, this is about food safety. FDA comes down to food safety. You got to make sure your labeling is correct. You want guidance for that? FDA has a 132-page book that they have published. But there are changes now with the labels. Those have to be taken care of before you invest in your rotogravure cylinders, so you don't pump more money into that. Allergens are responsible for 90%, more than 90% of all food recalls. And that is the biggest dread of any American food company, recalling nationwide. So you want guidance for the FDA? How to deal with the FDA? I'm going to say there's 3 things. Go directly to the source, go online, chat with them, email them. The FDA is what it comes down to because they will give you the most legitimate information. The second thing is you need food safety plans. You need to have them in place. They need to be monitored. You need to have in-house quality assurance or hire consultants. And the third thing is, it is very important to have the right trading partner because, for example, like my company, we have a former FDA director on our payroll. And we go to them directly when you all ask questions and we pass along that information. So we're almost there. The food safety programs, ISO 22000, BRC, GFSI, they are necessary when you export to any country. But with the US, with the new FSMA standard, those have to be augmented a little bit. There is a little extra to be done, which your trading partner can help you out with, which the FDA directly can help you out with as well. It is that integration of your food safety plan with FSMA. Make this a part of daily life. It's not when you get an FDA audit, and they will audit your factories, and that's okay, but that's not the day to wear the hats and the masks. It has to happen on a daily basis. Don't use the same table for cooked food and non-cooked food. Don't cross-contaminate them. It's simple. You will be spending some extra money to educate your staff. You will be spending some extra money for gamma ray treatment of your spices, but it is worth it because you are exporting to the US, to the largest food market in the world. You're gonna make your money back. You have your ROI. And what it really comes down to is this. This is what I ask my staff. This is what my family asks our staff. Would you confidently feed the food that we sell to your family? And only when confidently your answer is yes, that we are successful, there is no food safety problem, there is no trade or loss of revenue problem, and this is how we get around the FDA because there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with the food, and that's what they're looking for as well. So, having said that, Jai Hind, and God bless America.